Welcome everybody. In today's video, it's a battle of the scout knives. I have two scout knives here. One is not really a scout knife, it's more of a military knife, but you'll see the similarities here in just a bit, and I'll go into why I think one is better than the other at half the price. So, starting off the game here, we have the Rough Rider, scout knife with micarta handles. Very nice little knife here with some imperfections that I will point out later. Up next we have the Marbles GI utility knife. And I'm going to start off right now saying I prefer this one over this knife, even though this is only like $7 if you get just the knife. I paid $13 for that and the spork. So that's still almost half the price of this, clocking in at $22 for this knife, $13 for this and a spork. Consider your options. Now, what are the differences? We'll start off with the knives closed here. Some side-by-side comparisons. The middle divider here is pretty much the same size between the two knives. I cannot really tell a difference, but the stock of the tools on the Rough Rider are thicker than the stock of the blades on the Marbles. So if blade thickness is a thing for you, lean towards the Rough Rider. But as you can also see, the Marbles is significantly thinner than the Rough Rider. Fits better in your pocket. Has a longer bail, which has its benefits and drawbacks comparing it to the standard bail of a scout knife, normal thought scout knife. Big difference there. This has micarta handles, which are too smooth to really have the grippiness of micarta, but still have some grippiness, I guess. And this is all just a chunk of steel, a slab of metal, which has golf ball divots in it, which give it some grip, but it is not necessarily an altogether slippery knife. It is not an altogether solid knife to hold in your hand. So, 50-50. If you like, this may be a little bit more comfortable, being a little bit more rounded than the Marbles. Marbles is more flat, but I'm still leaning towards the Marbles. Now, as I've pointed out already, the metal thickness here on the tools of the Rough Rider are thicker than the Marbles knife. But they have the same similar design choice. Like, they all have this little kick here to fit the tools in. Like, they're not just flat and kinked over. Like, these are wibble wobbled over to allow for the tools to be put in here. So, we'll start off with the awls. And these are still fairly out of, this one has been used a little bit, but this is out of box, brand new. I haven't used this at all. This I've used for a few days, but I have not done anything extreme with it. This is not really sharp up till this last like 1/4 inch. And then that tip, very sharp. Goes through an aluminum can like it's not even there. Same thing with this. A little bit more so because this is square on flat at the tip, if the camera will decide to focus, whereas the Marbles is a bit more rounded at the tip, a little bit more pokey. Out of box, we have rough edges at the beginning of the grind. We have rough edges following the grind. Here we have like next to no roughness except for right about here on the edge, which I'd expect on a $7 knife. I'm going with the $7 pricing of just the knife. We'll forget the spork for now. But $22, and this is supposed to be the Rough Rider top of the line impressive knife, and they've already started off with very noticeable imperfections on the grinding of the awl. I'm trying to get the light to hit it, and his light's just refusing to go where I want it to go, but there is this it's not aesthetic. It's not good, and quality control is not good on this knife. Quality control is better on this. Also, the way they kink the knife here, on both knives, actually, it does this. But you can see, and I'll hold these up when I get them opened, but you can see just under the tip of the knives a line where the awl scrapes the knife blade. Now, I understand these are made to be abuser knives. They're going to get scratched up. But like out of box, even out of box on this, that was there. Like, why? Did you not see that coming? Did you not see this happening? Now, also, I will say, Rough Rider has a half stop. Marbles does not. It is just open and close. Here you have the half stop on every tool. Both knives also have the same 440 carbon steel for the 4 blades and the springs on the back. Now this is probably stainless steel on the side, stainless steel here, but the tools and the springs are 440 carbon steel. The tools and the springs on this, 440 carbon steels. You're getting a basically identical knife, and you're paying double the amount for what? So micarta, it's been like so smoothed over, it's really not grippy at all. And then the bail came bent here. It's off center from what the knife should be. Also wobbles in place here. Do you see that? That is not good. It does not make me feel like this is going to be attached to my belt 5 miles down into a hike. Also, I have a hard time opening the flathead driver. That is just so tough. I'm going to bend my fingernail back. This, I have no trouble opening that same tool. I mean, they're not quite made the same. Like I said, this is a thinner blade steel than this. So obviously these are made on different machines. But these are pretty much identical in form and function. And yet there's this much disparity between the two knives. It's astounding how this is, actually. Like I said, the awls are a little different. The can openers are both fantastic can openers. Love these things. Probably my new favorite can opener compared to a Victorinox. Fantastic. Again, thicker, thinner. But both work and tear through metal like it's not even there. As somewhat evidenced by this. Been doing some tests. I don't want to waste a soup can just to test a can opener here, so I've been taking empty pop cans and running them through. They work right well on empty pop cans. I personally like the longer bail on the Marbles knife here, but you know, I do kind of like the classic, more traditional Boy Scout bail, which is a little bit more smaller and uniform. Both knives have these abrasive linings inside the nail nicks here, and they're larger than the normal nail nick on a knife. And that was back in the day when you had strike anywhere matches. You could strike them on that and be able to light your match 9 times out of 10. Like it was a self, you didn't need a box for them. That was your little striker pad. Great idea. The reason why this is all metal, this is a military knife, this is not a Cub Scout knife, if I did not make that clear earlier. The reason why this is all metal and not like jigged bone, or they didn't have micarta back in World War II. This dates back to the Pacific War of World War II, Pacific Theater of World War II. They did not really have micarta back then, but they had bone and wood. This is kind of a jigged bone handle here. And the reason why this is all metal is not because it's cheap. Yes, it's cheap. It's a good option to be cheap sometimes. But out in the Pacific, you have the intense heat of the day, colder times at night. You have the moisture of the outer atmosphere, the dry insides of the ships if they had it that way. And the bone would expand, contract, crack. The glue attaching it to the liner would fail. The pins would bust loose, and it would be hard to hold the knife. It was not comfortable, it was not safe, and it looked horrible. So people figured just go ahead and make this without that weakness. Because back then at World War II, we didn't have flipper knives like this with removable scales, those G10, micarta, yada yada yada. We didn't have the Chris Reeve Sebenza type looking knife. We didn't have the Benchmade Bug Out. You know, the average knife back then in World War II was something like this. A bone with bolsters, one or more blades. Great knife. You know, traditional knives are a great way to go. I do recommend traditional knives for a lot of people. But this was really your only option for a knife back then. You did have Swiss Army knives coming around at that time, but they were still mostly in Europe at that time. So to just ditch the bolsters, some of the aesthetics, and just have a knife that would not fail was fantastic. And you had this large bale, larger than a Boy Scout knife, that you could just really tie a rope through. I've got this hunk of twine here, you know, big bulky twine. You could just tie that through, do yourself a knot, and you've got that attached. It's not going anywhere, and it folds out of the way when you're trying to use one of the tools. It's good. It's great. Love it. Yeah. Come on out of there. There we go. So that is why this knife is all metal, when back in the day most knives were looking like this. That's because of the Pacific atmosphere of moisture, heat, cold, expansion, contraction. It just wrecked the knives. So, the comparison here is really these two knives. They have identical tools if you were to look at them from the side, really. The main difference might be the knife blade on this looks a little different than the knife blade on that, especially with how they're pivoted and how they're angled, but very similar, all intents and purposes. And this one is $7 to $10. This one runs minimum $22. And I really got to recommend the Marbles GI utility knife. It's really just a lot better than the Rough Rider. And also consider this. I've mentioned this in the review of the video that I did on this knife in particular. You're buying these mostly for kids, okay? Keep this in mind. It's not usually a grown-up that buys a Scout knife. It's usually the kid gets a Scout knife. And this is, I have big hands, okay? I am full grown. I'm 6'3". These are big hands. And that is a full size knife for me. This is going to be a hunk of chunk for a kid. And then, as I pointed out earlier, I have a hard time opening this. And assuming quality control of Rough Riders is somewhat consistent, one of these four tools is going to, it's not usually the knife because you got a lot of leverage here, but one of these four tools is going to be hard to open. And I have full grown fingernails, but think about a kid's fingernails. They're not going to be able to dig that thing out. They're going to have to always have another tool on hand, like say a spork or something, to pry that out. And that's just adding to the complexity and lessens the fun of a Boy Scout knife. I think it would be cooler as a kid, thinking back to when I was a kid, I think I would rather have a knife branded, for the military as my Boy Scout knife than a knife branded for the Boy Scouts as a Boy Scout knife. Just a personal preference, but consider that. Also, somewhere online, I forget the website, but I saw a knife identical to this, not made by Marbles, made by someone else, 440 steel, just like these two. This same knife, same bale, same everything. They're charging $60 for that. And you can buy this for $7. Same quality. Okay, same quality. The only real problem I had with this knife when I got it was out of box. There was this niche about right here on the blade that, the rest was razor sharp out of box except for that one little spot. And so I took about a minute of sharpening and honing on my leather block here, and I got that worked out. Now the whole thing is razor sharp, good to go. So the one imperfection that was on this, I could change. The imperfection on this, like the wobbling of the bail, I can't really change some of this. I can just choose to ignore it, but I cannot really change it. This, the one real thing that I had an issue with, I could change. And I am fine with the scratch on the blade here because this is going to be a beater knife. I'm going to enjoy using this thing. You know, if I break it, I'll get me another one. But this one, it's branded to be nice. It's branded to be a keepsake. And already out of the box, we have a scratch on the blade. The hole punch is terrible with how even the grinding is. It's all over the place on that. The knife blade, I will grant. Good knife blade. Love the knife blade. Love that. Fantastic. Can opener, wonderful. The all functions does not look great. You know, it's nitpicky, I know, but it's me, and given that these are basically relative companies to each other, you know, like Marbles, I think, is owned by Rough Rider or something. I'm not sure of the details here, but considering that you're paying $22 for this, or $7 for that, and if you want to splurge and spend $13 and get a spork, which way would you go? Tell me down below which knife would you rather have. I understand Camillus makes Scout knives. I understand there's other brands of knives out there. I'm specifically referencing these two knives for this video. And I don't know. I personally really love this knife. This is going to be in my carry a lot, if not always. I mean, I have limited pocket space, and as I get new knives, I try to use them to check the channel, so I'll begrudgingly have to set this back a few times to test a new knife, but when I can, I will, and this is a delightful little knife. I recommend getting one, and I noticed that a fair chunk of my audience is 70 and over, looking at my analytics here. I'm sure some of you might have seen some of these back in World War II. My grandpa served in the Pacific as a Marine. Now, as a Marine, he might not have had this, but this might have been more for the Navy people that were on ships more often. I'm not positive. But comment down below. Did you have a knife like this when you was in the military? If so, you know, tell me. I would like to know. Did you know someone that had one? Do you still have yours from back then? If not, and you want one, go to eBay, look up Marbles. If the light will focus. Marbles quality knives. This is the GI utility knife. Look it up. Get a blast to the past. I hope that helps. But thank you for listening to me rant and ramble here. I bounced all over the place in this video. I apologize for that. I'm not cohesive more times than I am cohesive. Had to think on that one for a second. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informational. Hope you found it useful. I hope it helps you build your EDC to your standards. And, until the next time, farewell, carry well, and a bye-bye. Bye.